And we got
Bring him
Augustus
in.
here to break it down for us.
There he is.
Welcome to the Temple of Technology, Augustus.
Wow, I feel like your hair grew an inch. You must be drinking a lot of like milk or whatever to stimulate that hair growth.
I'm drinking Justin Mayer's bone broth, bro.
There we go.
There we go.
Kettle and Fire, shout out.
Shout
Let's
out
hear
former
it.
brother of the week.
Former brother of the week, Justin Mayers. Can you give us, just set the table for us, for those who haven't been following the drama, what's going on? How'd you wind up in this situation? Is it frustrating? Is it hilarious? A little bit of both?
And it's great. It's the same effect as like the sort of historical attempted hit pieces where it's like your attackers are like, he is the most powerful man in Silicon Valley.
Yes,
he
we really
is controlling the weather.
The hit pieces have gone direct now. Like you're getting the puff pieces in the mainstream media, and then the decentralized media, the citizen journalists are coming for you. So break it down.
Yeah. No, dude, my favorite so far has been the guy that was like, this is clearly a CIA psyop to make weather modification cool. He's backed by Peter Thiel and the same cabal of VCs as all these things. The State of the Union is 29 states this year have proposed legislation to carte blanche all weather modification and atmospheric engineering. And so these bills, they're essentially coming from a place of people being concerned about chemtrails and people being concerned about solar radiation management. Chemtrails, it's the suspicion that the government is like, what you see is contrails, long streaks in the sky. They suspect that's just like poison. Probably not. I haven't seen evidence of that yet, but open to being convinced. And then solar radiation management is an attempt to dim the amount of sun that reaches the Earth to cool the planet down. So it's this climate intervention. And then cloud seeding kind of just gets lumped in. Cloud seeding is what Rainmaker does. And it's nothing like the other two things that people are describing. But because nobody knows the difference, they're trying to ban it because they think that people are either getting poisoned or that we're some sort of like Agenda 2040 anti-human globalist initiative. And so surreal as it's been, I'm both in the trenches in Twitter and in many state capitals throughout the union. A lot of them I haven't testified at because I realize that actually drums up a lot more craziness than maybe is good. But we're in this public knife fight with the government of Florida and Tallahassee, just trying to, you know, that tweet, that iconic tweet where Trump says like, I just want to stop the world from killing itself. Like I just want to bring people water that need it. And I think that if you ban cloud seeding, you're basically banning like rocketry or fission. And so that's what we're trying to stop right now.
Can you talk about water scarcity? I think people, it's hard for them to process because they turn on the tap or they turn on the shower and just water comes out and it's not that expensive.
Yeah, water comes from the faucet.
You know, we're here,
gasoline comes from
we're
the
here
pump.
in Los Angeles, which
Groceries
is,
come
you know,
from the
one of the
store.
most, you know, sort of arid, you know, parts of the United States.
It's
I
like
imagine.
only possible because of some corrupt bargain that happened to like reroute the river like 50 years ago, right?
Yeah. Well, there's the Owens Valley situation. So LA County basically had to like send out agents posing as private people to buy up all the land between like the Owens River Valley and then redirect the water. And then there's a couple water barons that like you can't even say the name of or you'll be like disappeared to California. But the California State Water Supply Strategy, like from the Department of Natural Resources, says that 500,000 acres of farmland have to turn into desert by 2030 in California in order to like maintain water supply for the cities. Like Phoenix, Arizona is banning new housing development because there's not enough water. Salt Lake City, people are getting respiratory problems because the Great Salt Lake is drying up and there's not enough water. And then, you know, like the wildfires that go on all over the country, that's because there's not enough water on the ground. And in the case of Florida, a lot of people have told me like, you know what, listen, I'm convinced that cloud seeding is useful and beneficial for a state like California that is in a drought and that is a desert. But Florida, we get plenty of rain. Like, why do we need to bother modifying the weather here? Well, 14 million acres of farmland in Florida is currently in a drought. And then 30,000 acres of Miami-Dade County just burnt to the ground because there wasn't enough water, because there was a drought. So like if Mayor Suarez is listening, please save us. We just want to bring people water, and drought is much more ubiquitous and consequential than people realize. Like if you want to make America healthy again, we have to grow food domestically. And if we don't have enough water to do that, then it's going to be some kooky GMO like Chinese stuff that gets shipped over the ocean, or like Soylent Green product. Not to
no, I hear you.
Deep cut.
But that's where we're at right now with respect to drought.
No, a lot of dystopian scenarios.
What are these? Is there anybody besides you fighting to save, the private and public, just private and public groups from being able to do cloud seeding? Like, are you the last man standing, or do you have a team?
So, well, I've got a great team at Rainmaker, and I'm really grateful for that. And we've had a bunch of farmers that are beneficiaries of our program go to bat for us because, like, they previously had to tear up their pistachio ranches or their pistachio orchards because they didn't have enough water for them, and now they're better able to farm because of the production of water that we're doing. But you know that part where, or that like famous Stanford speech where Teal says, you should go after a really small market. Like if there's lots of people involved and it's already too late. Well, I'm not like the last man standing. I'm kind of like the first man standing. So it's other than the farmers that we're helping and the other great team members I have at Rainmaker running around the country. It's Augustus, Doricko, a couple states, 30 states.
Yeah.
And what is that? Yeah, like how do you even balance this sort of simultaneously? You have you're a company, you generate revenue, you have expenses, you're sort of planning timelines, and you're also potentially fighting like legal battles, and you're also dealing with like technical risk in the business, like, right? Like what you're doing is very hard. It can be done, but like that's also a challenge. Like as an entrepreneur, how do you kind of balance all those things? And it feels to me like, the sort of legal risk is like the most asymmetric, risk. You can always launch and create a new prototype, take another flight, et cetera. But then if there's sort of these like blanket bans, that feels like, is that like taking up 60% of your time now, just making sure that you're going to be able to do this in 5 years?
Well, so not quite. I mean, it's definitely like a large double-digit percentage. The interesting thing with respect to the political dynamic, though, is this. It's not really like a right-left issue so much as it is like an east-west issue because the West doesn't have water. So Democrats and Republicans alike on the western half of the US are like, oh, this is sick. I would love to have water. Then the people that have as much water as they have conventionally needed and aren't as subject to drought, they're the ones more wary of it. So I'm not worried about Rainmaker domestically at a state level, just because there's a lot of states that we haven't gotten into yet, like Nevada or Arizona or New Mexico. I do think that the domino theory thing holds true to some extent. So yes, we do have to focus on it. The super like funny, crazy outcome is that I just like if Rainmaker was totally banned from the US, then we just double down on Riyadh and then we like camp out there for 5 years and come back weathered and wearing desert garb. But
my Arrakis.
Lawrence of Arabia mode.
My Arrakis. My Dune.
My Dune. They're gonna send you to Dune.
I watched Dune 2 in theaters 5 times, bro.
Whoa,
A religious zealot comes to turn the desert planet green.
I love it. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So no, I trust my team a lot. I have a
Can
really
you
great
talk a
team.
little bit about just like the general fear around cloud seeding? I think that right now with health and Maha, there's just this general idea that like anything new is risky.
Yeah,
even fertilizer.
Luddites are having a heyday.
Yeah, bull market and Ludditism
Luddite
for sure. But I mean, at the same time, like, you eat too much salt, your doctor will tell you that's going to hurt your heart. And there's a million different things where even if it's safe at a certain level, you take it up by 100x and it gets bad. And there's just all these balancing. And then also we do the mice studies, but does that really transfer? And, what happens when someone's like, vaping pink liquid for 50 years, like we don't really know. And we're kind of figuring it out right now. What gives you confidence about the low impact of this?
Mm-hmm. So, I really sympathize with people that are worried about this because it sounds on its face like crazy to be modifying the weather and to be dispersing chemicals. But to your point about like vaping stuff for 50 years and not having longitudinal data on the health outcomes, like cloud seeding, even though Rainmaker is very innovative, even though a lot of new things have been done in academia that we're implementing from like the last 5 years. Cloud seeding is 80 years old, dude. This was invented in the United States in 1945. GE has the first patent from 1946. People have done 80 or 30 or 50 years, depending on the watershed, studies on the concentration of silver iodide that ends up in the water and the soil. And after decades of operation, you only see parts per trillion of this stuff. Like you need super sophisticated instrumentation to even detect it in the first place. And so there's been no negligible health impacts found to either people or agriculture or the environment. And those studies, they've been done. And like, should Rainmaker replicate those? Should we continue to do it just to prove it out further? Totally agree. But like, it's totally safe. And if you think about the like LD50, like the lethal dose of
Yeah.
silver, it's less than salt. It's less than table salt. It's 2 milligrams per kilogram with salt, and then it's 2,800 for silver iodide. So this is like a resoundingly safe material to be using, and the data from decades shows that.
Can you talk about a little of the history of? I feel like when it's easy to look at the chemtrails thing and be like, okay, well, like the most aggressive conspiracy theory there is that it's like literally like mind control, and it's like we're so divided in America. I don't know. The mind control drugs clearly aren't working because what are they mind controlling us to do? But there is a legitimate criticism that like when you fly a bunch of planes around, those contrails are emitting pollution and your skies get dirtier. And I remember after 9/11, all the planes were grounded. It was the clearest day in the skies ever. And there is some sort of like low key harm and there's always these like knock-on effects. I'm sure with the solar radiation management, same thing. We have been experiencing global warming, but we've also been experiencing global dimming, and those have been kind of counteracting each other in some way. Can you just talk about some of the history of these things and how you think about worrying about the second and third order effects of cloud seeding?
Yeah, totally. So with respect to weather modification and climate engineering, like the thing that I think everybody needs to realize is that we've been doing it unintentionally for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Like you build a city, then you have a heat island that affects cloud formation and precipitation patterns.
Sure.
If you have a coal plant or a steel plant or a nat gas plant, the steam and the aerosol you emit reliably creates more clouds and precipitation like tens of miles downwind as well. The emissions from our cars, right? Like those have pollutants in them. Apart from just like CO2 considerations. So we do modify the weather unintentionally all the time.
Yeah.
Rainmaker's thesis is that like we should be modifying it intentionally to either like unfuck the earth as it stands or make it more lush and abundant once we've done the former. When it comes to knock-on effects, the common question is like, if you're making it rain more here, is that reducing precipitation downwind there?
Yep.
Totally reasonable question. Like I think on its face that logic makes sense. Unfortunately, the system's pretty complicated. It turns out that only 9% of all of the water that traverses the atmosphere in the United States precipitates over it. The vast majority is either recycled by the oceans, precipitates over the oceans, evaporates away, and never condenses again over the US. So if you just increase the utilized water in the atmosphere, then it's purely positive sum, and you can select to some extent for which clouds aren't naturally going to precipitate with the appropriate radar and probes. The evidence of downwind drought is totally uncompelling. Nobody's provided reliable data there, but are people concerned about it? Are they rightfully concerned about it? Sure, totally. And then the last thing I'll say with respect to contrails, there's this funny thing that people realized where if you fly a bunch of planes early in the morning and then develop contrails, you'll actually cool that area locally and the planet to some extent because it'll reflect sunlight before it warms the planet up with the light of day. And if you fly a bunch of planes at sunset, then that will retain the heat and kind of act like an insulating layer and keep the earth warmer. So like just plane flights, American Airlines, Delta, whoever, they are doing weather modification unintentionally, apart from any chemtrail stuff.
Sure.
I'm just hoping to give a little bit more sanity to the ways in which we're modifying the weather.
Earlier this week, there was a video that went viral of a very cinematic desert in China that has been reforested. Do you think you'd have an easier time in the public eye if you were just planting trees, or is any modification of our terrain just a hot button issue regardless? And do they have to do cloud seeding in addition to that, or are they just using traditional irrigation? Like, how does that, I wanted to talk to you about that Chinese video that went viral because it was so striking. And it was like, for me, it was like, I want that here for sure. But I don't know how other people took it.
Yeah, it looks like you could get like a thatch roof in the middle of the Gobi.
Totally. Yeah. It felt like this idyllic, like little preserve. You put a ranch house on that. The golden retriever's running outside. You're taking the horse down to the local,
Golden retriever mode.
to the local saloon. And it just seems like it's the West, right? Again, you have new land that people can go live in. And that's just like a land of opportunity. And I think that'd be so cool. But yeah, what's your take on it?
Dude, I mean, that's what the Central Valley was. The Central
Yeah.
Valley used to be deserts and swamps, and now it is the most productive agricultural region on the planet. It produces like 30% of all of the fruits and then the majority of like the red fruits in the United States. We used to terraform all the time. Like the Hoover Dam was an attempt to terraform the West.
Yeah.
Uh, I think that like people at, like maybe it's a last man problem, maybe it's Ludditism, maybe it's just like general, like, well, no, I won't say that. But uh, like we've just lost the desire to be great. I think in the United States, we've lost a desire to like build the future and see the future through. If I was just planting trees, yeah, for sure, it would be easier. You need the water though, so unless you're setting up enormous conveyance systems, which China largely is, and cloud seeding in addition to that,
Mm-hmm.
it's a non-starter. There's a couple technologies, I mentioned last time, like soil amendments that can get soil to retain more water that would be good. But trees, they emit dust that creates like a majority of our clouds in some regions and induces precipitation.
Hmm.
Cloud seeding like it mimics that natural process. It's just with a material that works a little bit better. So uh yeah, man, like I plan to plant trees in the future. I plan to make as many things green as possible. I hope that people like get on board with the vision to make deserts green and great, but it's gonna take a minute.
Uh, I had a funny experience at Hereticon. There was a guy talking about terraforming. I'm blanking on his name, but he put out this like
Thomas
amazing
Puero.
Thomas Puero. Made this amazing presentation. It was like 40 minutes long, showing all the different places around the world that we could terraform and how amazing it would be. And one of the places that he highlighted was the Salton Sea and how you could like theoretically like divert the Colorado
I've
River.
been there with Augustus. We went out there.
And
Ben.
and then I went up to him afterwards and I was like, this is an amazing project. I would love to make the Salton Sea like Dubai with just like, it's a
Jordy comes up.
like-
How do we make money off this?
no, but I asked him, I was like, how do we actually do
commercialize
this?
this? Yeah.
I was thinking like the way to do it is through a hyper commercial project that says all this land is worthless right now because it's toxic surrounding this sort of evaporating sea. Like if somebody were to come in and buy up all the land around the Salton Sea that's now very depressed and then start lobbying to actually make this stuff happen, like it feels like you need I asked him how does this get done? He was like, I have no idea. Like somebody should try it, but like I don't know how they would actually get it done. Is it really just like one person caring that sort of like makes these kind of projects possible, right? And like in the case right now, there's like a good chance that weather modification, cloud seeding, et cetera, just would get banned if you weren't like flying to Florida frequently.
Great man theory of history.
Great man theory of history. But yeah, it feels like in this era, in the sort of Doge era, like if we do enter a period of like deregulation in some areas, like some of these projects, might be possible. But how do you think about the Salton Sea opportunity, and then just like if we're even capable of doing projects at that scale anymore?
So a related thing, interestingly enough, is like I think that there should be way more alternative finance that startups employ. I promise this is related. I'm going to wait until Q1 or Q2 26 to do this, but we're just going to stand up a land fund and we're just going to start buying up the land that currently isn't arable, primarily in Arizona and California, because the same acre of land that's worth like $6,000 in either of those places has the same soil quality that the Central Valley does that would sell for like 70 to 500,000. Like we'll set up a subsidiary that we sell some equity in to get LPs involved so that we can terraform that and then flip the land or keep it as an agricultural asset that is only made viable because of the water that we bring. It has to be a commercial interest. I don't think that we maybe America at one point had, like, maybe there's this idyllic previous America that existed. I'm not sure, where people did things just for the public benefit, or because it was cool. Now, yes, it has to be cool, but moreover, like, there has to be commercial interest. And yeah, I'm going to do exactly that. And I hope that somebody beats me to it for the sake of all of the benefit that'll come from it. But if they don't, I'll make a lot more money because of them.
This is hilarious because you're going to be duking it out when you're buying that land because Casey Hanmer, we had him on the show earlier, he wants to put solar panels all over it and turn it into a parking lot. And you're going to be like, no, like I'll pay $1 more per square foot. But I do.
We can have the auction. Yeah. We'll do the auction.
Yeah. The auction. Hey, $5. Do I have $6? Do I have $6? I do have a question about the cloud seeding stuff. It feels like, I mean, all of this stuff is somewhat zero sum. Like we're not really creating new water. We're kind of moving it around. But desalination seems awesome. I was looking at it pretty intensely a year ago and it seemed really difficult, honestly. But desalination, like what is your take there? And it just feels like we have, I would expect a Gundo company to be doing this. Like we have people working on nuclear now. We have people working on solar. You're working on cloud seeding. Like desalination. If I heard like, oh yeah, there's some hot startup who's working on desalination, I wouldn't be like, oh, this is breaking my mind right now. I'd be like, of course, that's the next thing that the guys will go after in the El Segundo because like they've kind of checked the box on everything else. What's the state of desalination and what's your take?
Yeah, desal is great. I'm not anti-desal. I don't think that we step on each other's toes. It is a modification of the water cycle, right? Like whereas they are taking salt water out of the ocean, making it fresh and usable, we're taking cloud water out of the sky and bringing it down to make it fresh and usable. It's relatively efficient right now. I think there's a lot of promise in catalytic desalination. I'm not enough of an electrical engineer to come up with something sufficiently innovative in the space, but I think that probably shows more promise than RO. It's relatively efficient as it is. The problem with desalination for gigascale American projects for a lot of the world that is currently undersupplied with respect to water is conveyance. We can set up a huge desal project in LA. Sweet. No dice for Colorado. Doesn't matter for Nevada. Barely even matters for the Central Valley because you have to set up hundreds of miles of huge pipes and then maintain those pipes for as long as the project exists. And it's doable. Like the California State Water Project is evidence of conveyance working, but it is crazy infrastructure and crazy eminent domain that goes into shipping that water. So should California be more reliant on it? Totally. Could we like with tariffs or something, strong arm Mexico into giving us like the Sea of Cortez to desalinate for Arizona? Maybe. But if you're in the interior of the United States, the only way that you can make more water is if you bring it down from the sky. And that's who we're primarily trying to serve.
This was Blake Masters' point that I really enjoyed. He said, how do we get water into the interior states, Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico? Well, we're going to reroute all the water from California into those states. And then California, the future of water in California is nuclear powered desalination. And he said that like 10 years ago. Haven't heard anyone try and build it. Maybe he should have stuck with venture capital and back that company because I want it to happen. But maybe it'll happen soon. That'd be great.
Okay, or no desal, no cloud seeding, boiling the ocean. Nuclear boilers on the surface of the ocean to make big enough clouds to fly inland.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so you just make the clouds and then float them over. The river, atmospheric rivers, right?
Many people have wanted to boil the ocean, but not literally. So we need more literal ocean boilers.
For sure.
I have a more personal question. How are you doing with all this? I care about, I'm lucky to be an investor in Rainmaker, but I care about you, even more on a personal level. I think your prefrontal cortex is like, about to maybe fully develop, right? But like you're under a lot of pressure for being like, in your mid 20s. Like anybody who's had a post go viral or sort of break containment knows what happens. Like your message requests on every platform are probably like, very dark. You seem like you're handling it incredibly well, but does it ever get to you?
That's really caring. Thanks for asking, man. Like I view Rainmaker as the best means by which I can serve God in my lifetime. And I owe everything in my life to Jesus Christ because of all that he's done for me in this life and then hopefully in next. So this situation that I'm going through, no big deal at all. Like if it ends up on the other side with, ideally me having gotten to educate and convince some people and bring them more water in places where they need it, I am happy to take the punches and the death threats in
Heat
the
shield.
interim. And even if it didn't work out, I'm going to give it my all. And I was a high school debate kid, so I live for this kind of dorky.
That's right.
Do not mess with the high school debate kids. They
online.
will go to war with
They'll
you
go to war
on
with
the
you.
timeline.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of predicted like the rise was so quick, the mood would shift, but I didn't expect that this was the instantiation of that mood that shift around the vibe of the company, right?
Yeah, and I just have to
totally
say,
tired.
like, there's so many people rooting for you, right?
Yeah.
Like, you really are. Your critics that call you an industry plant. In many ways, like, you are, you are a product of our industry, and there's just a lot of people, rooting for your success. So proud of you for not letting the
Never back down.
never back down.
Always claim victory.
Always claim victory. Don't let the haters get to you. And I would say, like, have a good rest of your Friday, but I'm sure today is basically a Monday for the Rainmaker Rainmaker team. Job's not finished.
I'm so sorry that the squat rack had to go. How are you getting fitness in these days then?
That was tragic, dude. I am walking to and from the office because I live 4 blocks away in
Okay.
Gundale, and otherwise I'm going
10,000
hard
step
skinny
gang.
priest mode. I'm big skinny
Okay.
priest.
Skinny priest mode. You've been the muscular warrior. I look forward to when you exit this and become a portly merchant.
Ah.
It's gonna happen. You're gonna IPO the company, sell it all, and become a private equity guy, rolling up the rest of the farmland
rest of the world.
or something. Yeah. The portly merchant is the future for sure.
No, I'm excited to have you back on when you're doing some of the land stuff, because like that does feel like, verticalizing and like capturing the full value that you guys can create over time is just like very obviously like you should own the land that you're raining water down on and gain the full economic benefit of the work. So it's fantastic having you on,
Yeah, this is great.
as always.
Thanks, guys.
Our
Appreciate it.
weatherman.
Our weatherman.
We needed a
Augustus.
weatherman. We
needed a
got it.
weatherman.
Start forecasting for TBPN.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you should.
You can't do forecasting would just be too easy for you, because there's gonna be rain like in that
Yeah,
square mile over there.
Yeah, we need the Zoom background, like the green screen, and it's you and like the map of next time you're on, fake Zoom background with the map of LA, and you can tell us where it's gonna rain this weekend. I'll have you on Friday, hang out. It'll be fun. Anyway,
guys.
great
All
hanging.
right.
We'll talk to you soon.
Talk soon.